Welcome back. We've got another video. Thankfully, it's not on CSV. I'm very ready to be done with that topic, but it does deal with interacting with files, file I/O. It's a topic that is called pickling. It's kind of fun. And the whole idea is that if we have data, it's a Python specific thing. We have Python data or a Python object. So I have a couple classes here. And let's say I have a cat instance. So this cat class, I have, blue equals cat, and name is blue, and breed is Scottish Fold, like that, and her toy is a string. All right, so I have this cat, and this is a simple example, but imagine that, we have a poker game, and I have a deck of cards, and I want to be able to actually save the state of the deck of cards in between when I run this application. When it shuts down or something, I want to save the contents to a file. We could use CSV, and to do that, we would just have to figure out how to actually get the data, in a CSV format. How would we represent all of this? This would be pretty easy, I guess, name, breed, and toy. But imagine a deck of cards. We have 52 cards. This data here isn't really tabular. Also, it's just a single cat. No reason to really make a CSV file where we have an entire, it's not tabular. It's just a single thing. It would be one row. What we can do instead is use what's called pickling. Pickle is a module. It's just, the idea of taking something and pickling it, putting it in a jar, and vinegar that you pickle something in, and it makes it last a lot longer and saves it so you don't starve through the winter back in the olden times. Same idea here. We can take something from Python, we pickle it, put it in a special pickle file, and what Python will do, the pickle module, will serialize the data, converting it into something called a byte stream, and then we can unpickle it whenever we want and pull it back out of that file, and it will be turned back into whatever it was before. So let me just show you. I have this blue variable, which is an instance of cat. If I wanted to imagine that this is a game state or something, a bigger application, I want to save it and then come back later and reload it. First, I need to import pickle. Okay, and then I scroll down. I need to open the file. So whatever the file I want, so we'll do our with open, and it needs to be a .pickle file. So let's just call this, pets.pickle, and we want to write to the file. And the other thing that's important is we're writing binary here, so we need to add that B. We're not manually doing any of the binary, but it's going to be converted into a byte stream when we call pickle as file. Then in here, we just call pickle.dump and then pass something in. So the first thing would be blue, and the second thing is the file that we're going to dump it to. So pickle.dump takes in some object. We can also use a tuple, pass in multiple items, and then those will be serialized and stored in this file. Let's run it now. If we look at pets.pickle, here's what we get. Very unreadable to humans. That's actually an important note about pickling, is that if you need your data when it's saved in a file somewhere to be readable, or you need it to be able to, be opened up in another language, like you want to be able to have your database connect to it, or a Java file somewhere else. It depends. But if that data needs to be usable while it's stored, then you probably don't want to pickle it. But if all you're doing is using a Python file to open it back up and unpickle the data, then this works fine. It's so easy. You can see that was a single line to dump it. So I didn't have to figure out how to, parse it as CSV, figure out what was a row. I didn't have to write it to a file. I just called this, and I passed in blue. Now, the trick is getting it back out, right? So I'm going to comment all of this out. I'll leave the import pickle. And to get it back out, we want to open the file again, pets.pickle, and we need to do it as RB, reading binary, as file, and then we just do pickle.load, and then the name of the file, and it's just called file. And whatever comes back from that will just be blue. Or if we passed in a tuple with multiple things, multiple objects, they would all come back in a single tuple. So let's save it to a variable. We'll call it zombie blue. Very funny. And then let's print, if I just print zombie blue, did we define? Okay, so there is this method that should say self.name is a self.species. And then we could also do print zombieblue.play, a method. All right, test it out. Oh, but before we can actually do that, we are commenting out some code that we do need. For example, these classes. That's really what it comes down to. I just meant to comment out this part where we created Blue. But if we don't have these classes defined, then this data comes back and Python's going to say, what do you mean? You're a cat class. I don't know what a cat class is. I don't have that recipe. So we need this class definition in order to make any instance, just like we need it in order to run this line. And now if I try running it, there we go. Blue is a cat. Blue plays with string. We've brought Blue back from the dead. So that's really all there is to pickling. Like I said, if you wanted to do more than one thing at a time, you pass them in as a tuple. So blue, comma, rusty, like this. And then they come back in that order. So zombie blue, comma, zombie rusty equals whatever pickle.load returns, which would be a tuple. And so the first thing in the tuple is assigned here, and the second is assigned there. But I'll leave it at one item for now. Okay, so like I said, pickling is really, really easy. It's a great way if you just need to store Python data or Python object or a couple somewhere so that you can resurrect it when your application starts up again. You can do that. But remember, it is not readable. It's not a good way of storing data if you need it while it's being stored in another format, another language. And on top of all of that, remember that whatever is stored in there, when we unpickle it, it's immediately being called. When we pickle.load, that Python code is running. So if somehow you allowed a user or something where there was bad Python code inside of the pickle file, when you load it, it's just going to execute. In our case, that's not a risk for us. But if we were taking user input and allowing users to write code somehow and then saving that and pickling that, that could get bad. So just an obligatory warning there. But really, it's best for just quickly dumping some Python data, Python objects, so we can come back later and get it. Okay,